Hi everyone, welcome to Ethernal Realms and welcome to the month ahead astrology reading. Make sure you check your sun, moon, and rising signs for a comprehensive view of the month. Additionally, I would recommend watching the tarot reading of the month ahead to get a different perspective. While you will know the astrology in advance through this session, I will also send you a reminder when the astrological events are near. All you have to do is subscribe, hit the bell, and you will be notified as the events occur through my community page. I occasionally post behind the scenes, meditation guidance, quizzes, and polls, which you can check out for yourself. And it goes without saying that you will be notified when new videos are out, such as other zodiac readings and pick a card tarot readings as well. If you prefer to cut down the guesswork about your month ahead, you can always connect with me via Etsy to get a personalized week-by-week month ahead tarot reading paired with the general astrology. Enough about me, let's talk about you. So let's talk the overview of September. Okay, I'm going to divide this into separate storylines. There are a couple of things happening in parallel, and at some points in time, different things are being activated. So just the general themes going on here. Let's talk about the first one. Is that in the month of September, there are going to be lots of changes on the personal level. And that's because we have Mercury and Venus changing direction. Both of them are going to go direct. And whenever that happens, on especially the personal planets of, the Venus, Mercury, even Mars, we experience lots of shifts in our own mindset and how we go about life. Okay, so on a personal level, lots of changes. But apart from that, we also have Jupiter going retrograde on the same day that Venus goes direct. And that's interesting because it's sort of like both of them are moving in parallel, but they're moving in opposite directions. So they kind of see each other, but they can't really meet at this point. So when Jupiter was active, Venus was not, and now Venus is active, so Jupiter is not. And that's going to be an interesting dynamic to see. But apart from that, we also have Saturn in retrograde, Neptune, Uranus, and Pluto in retrograde. So everything is retrograde for like the first few days of the month, and then slowly one by one things start going direct. That is Mercury and Venus. So whenever the bigger planets are retrograde, they're retrograde for a longer time compared to Mercury, let's say. So whatever changes occur on that level, we are more susceptible to absorbing because we don't quite understand it, or it's not yet conscious and it's kind of happening in the background, or this is like involuntary changes that we were not initiating but is introduced through the universe. Okay, so it's sort of a time where the universe is speaking louder than we are able to speak. Okay, so there will be less resistance as a result of this. That's the plus side. We are able to accept the guidance and the intuitive nudges much more easily. And because Mercury, Venus are direct, we are able to kind of incorporate that in a personal level. For example, if you feel like your belief system is not doing you any favors, or that the structures you have in your life are not working in your favor, then there is this opportunity to shift those things. But that initial feeling is going to be the universe speaking. That's the trigger that comes from your soul, from your subconscious, whatever. So yes, there will be changes in beliefs, priorities, and mindsets with Jupiter, Venus, and Mercury changing directions. The next story that's happening is that our focus this month is shifting when the sun is moving from Virgo season into Libra season. So when the sun is in Virgo, there's also a lot of earth activities, earth trines, conjunctions, movements, and so on, right? So there's a lot of earthly matters which are going to happen, and it's going to be a dynamic phase because, again, Mercury is in an earth sign in Virgo, and it changes direction, which changes, again, the flow of things. When the sun moves into Libra, we're going to talk more about relationships and communication, what commitment means or partnership means, and how to find equality and balance and all of that. And this is going to be a more rejuvenating phase because Venus is out of shadow by the time, or at least, it is really, really getting out of shadow almost. So it's going to be, whenever a planet comes out of retrograde phase, basically it is essentially rested and rejuvenated. So it's kind of gaining power through the post-shadow phase, and then it's going to fully glow in its eminence, basically, right? So in Libra season, Venus, the ruler of Libra, is going to come into full strength. So this is going to be rewarding, rejuvenating, not only for relationships, but also financial matters. Another theme to talk about is that there are 6 trines this month. All of them are Earth, which is awesome, which means we have physical blessings, material blessings. And we have 1 conjunction, also Earth, which means there is some emphasis days, which we'll talk about when we get into it. We do have 2 squares, and both of them have Venus involved in it. Okay, so the first one is going to be a direct Venus squaring with Jupiter, who's retrograde. And this is going to be an interesting one because, like I mentioned, going parallel but in opposite direction. And there can be this ideology that we adopt around this time that maybe we and our goals are not able to meet, or our value system, our belief system, they are not able to meet. Okay, so if we move with that assumption, it's not going to do us any favors. It can just seem like we're doing a lot of things but we're going nowhere. That's what it can seem like. But that does not have to be that way. Okay, now keep in mind, Venus in this square is going to be in shadow phase, and that is again indicating that Venus is not yet in full power, so it can't really help Jupiter with much, or it can't really do anything. It can't share the experience as such. It's just going about in its own lane. And Jupiter is in retrograde, so it's kind of in that asleep state, so it's not able to exert itself fully around this time either. So with that, if you mix in the square, the illusion or the assumption that we don't have power, or that we still have a lot of other things to be taken care of before we start moving towards our goals, that can be quite strong. But the plus side is, if we remove that assumption, that initial thing, and just go with things with an open mind, an open heart, and just give it a shot, it's not going to be this way. It is actually quite blissful. It can help you recognize what you're really looking for in life and all of that. We'll get into the actual effects more as I talk about your zodiac. Next, the other square is also with Venus direct, but this square, she's out of shadow. Okay, she's going to square with Uranus. And what's interesting is Uranus is going to be retrograde, right? So all this month of August and even July, Venus was squaring with Uranus. In the first phase, she was going into shadow, so she was losing strength. So Uranus was kind of winning this square, let's say. In the second month, in August, Venus was fully in retrograde, so she was not in the mood to contest with Uranus's whims and fancies. Okay, so again, Uranus wins that. This would be the first time where Venus is stronger and Uranus is kind of like, okay, well, I've made whatever I needed to make as a change, and what do you have to say? And what's even more interesting is that Venus also rules Taurus, where Uranus is sitting. So she can really dictate how we're going to take advantage of the changes that have already happened, the breakthroughs we have made, the realizations that have occurred in the months of July and September. Venus is now going to put that into context, put a more pleasant spin to it. Like, it doesn't have to be so drastic. We can, take it one step at a time and make the best of it. So all in all, it seems a little optimistic. And we also have an opposition. That's the only opposition. So one opposition, one conjunction. In opposition, we have Virgo again being involved, but here we're going to learn to balance the emotion side of it. So it's nice that we don't have a completely practical and logical month, which generally happens when we have so much Virgo and Libra presence, but we also have a little bit of emotion mixed in there, so we're able to kind of come back to center. Okay, fourth storyline, let's talk about the moon phases. We have a new moon in Virgo along with Mercury going direct. That's going to be on the 15th. And we also have a full moon in Libra on the 29th. And this is going to be the date that Venus squares with Uranus. So both days we have some important events occurring. So these lunar phases are not going to be boring, to say the least. We'll talk about it a lot more when we get into your zodiac. But in essence, new moons talk about new potentials and new beginnings. Meanwhile, full moons talk about completion of a cycle or pivoting into a new direction. Quite fateful. There can be external help and triggers that kind of show us and point where we should be headed next, basically. Now, the fifth storyline is that eclipse is coming about very soon. So September is sort of a drum roll phase. And at first, we might not feel it too much because we're kind of busy with the whole slumber of all the planets being retro. Then on the 4th, Venus goes direct and so on and so forth. So slowly we start waking up and getting into the mode of realizing the fateful changes that the eclipses are going to bring. Because those fated changes, they are, again, universally directed. And because so many of these outer planets are retrograde, we are, like I mentioned, we don't have that much resistance. We're more accepting of what's coming in. So this is going to be an interesting eclipse season in October, and we're starting to see what it could be about. Okay? All right, let's start with your specific reading. Okay, Scorpio, so first let's talk about all the planets that are changing direction this month, because that's one of the major things that's happening. Then we'll get into the aspects and the moon cycles, as well as some other minor notes that I want to talk about. So I did mention quite a lot of this in the general overview. If you're curious, you can check it out. Give some additional insights that I may not repeat in this section. Okay, so let's get into it. We have Jupiter in Taurus in your opposite sign of partnerships, one-on-one connections, collaborations, going retrograde. That's on the 4th. And the same day, we have Venus in Leo going direct. And Leo falls in your 10th house of career, ambitions, your professional sphere, as well as your status and how you want to show up in the world. So both of them are benefic planets, both of them are in fixed signs, but they're moving in opposite directions. This can indicate that you are clear about what you're desiring to create as your goals or ambitions in your life and how you want to show up in the world, but you may not yet be very clear about some other obstacles that are in the way, which are more connected with the bigger picture. For example, you might know that you want to pursue a particular career path, but you don't know what that means for, like, who do you reach out to exactly, and what types of resources are you going to need moving forward. And also it can be that you already have something going on connected with your clients or other people you're in a relationship with, but the changes that you make or the realizations you're having about your desires can have some, re-evaluations that need to be made connected with your partnerships. Now, Jupiter rules the belief system, your philosophical point of view as well. So with Jupiter here, it can be talking about what you believe about others or about relationships. What types of relationship dynamics are you hoping for moving forward, whether or not you are already in a commitment. This can also talk about entering a contract, or if you've already entered a contract, you might be revisiting the terms and conditions and seeing where there is some leeway or some flexibility for you to expand upon. On the 15th, we have Mercury in Virgo going direct. Now, Mercury rules Virgo, so probably the first half of this month is still going to be about figuring out what exactly it is trying to create here. Now, Virgo falls in your 11th house of hopes, dreams, and aspirations, as well as your friendships and your large-scale network. The 11th house also rules humanitarian efforts. So if you're a healer of sorts, or you're thinking about contributing to humanity in some way, you could still be figuring out how you can plan that or organize that. If you have social media accounts, for example, you could be looking at maybe changing up your templates, the appearance of everything, and also it can be about improving your content, efficiency, productivity, and so on, so that you have a little bit more flexibility in your everyday routines. Okay, now let's talk about the aspects. First, I'm going to talk about the Virgo-Taurus aspects, because that's one of the major things that's participating in this entire month. So Virgo is in that 11th house of yours, and Taurus falls in your 7th house. So because it's a trine aspect, which is the most major aspect throughout this month, it can talk about opportunities, blessings, or breakthroughs that occur in ongoing circumstances, or previously whatever has been blocking your expansion that can come about here. Now, let's talk about the Mercury trine with Jupiter, which is occurring on the 4th. Mercury and Jupiter are retrograde. It's an Earth trine, which indicates this can relate with physical efforts or resources, or it can be about, your physical body, health, wealth, and well-being. So when both of these planets are retro, it indicates that a lot of these changes are occurring inside out, or it can be dealing with past projects and promises that are coming through here. Okay, so it can be something that you started around the middle of August and you thought that, okay, I'm going to work on this. I will research a little bit more and ensure that I'm going to develop on this a lot more before I actually publish it outside. Now, Jupiter rules publishing, 11th house reaches people, so this can be connected with publishing any type of work or research proposal, papers, etc. Now, this can talk about looking at what you have thought about in the past and where are you now. You're likely to see some progress since, let's say, August 15th, moving ahead, because that's when Mercury went retrograde and this whole cycle can start showing some positive turnarounds. You're not quite there yet. There's still some stuff to be done, but it's showing some good signs. Now, we have the same aspect with the same zodiacs occurring, and also the same planets, by the way, that's occurring on the 25th. So Mercury trines with Jupiter twice this month, once on the 4th, once on the 25th. Now, 25th, this one's an interesting one because, first of all, the focus is shifting from the Virgo season into Libra season. So essentially, your focus moves from your 11th house into your 12th house. Okay. What that means is that at the early part of this month, you were looking at, how to improve your productivity, efficiency, your lifestyle routines, and how can you organize best so that everything is more streamlined for you and you're following up on whatever it is that you want to achieve in life or whatever your dreams are and how you can create those situations. And later on, it moves into this Libra sector, which is about spirituality, letting go, what exists in the unknown, surrendering to the process, accepting the intuition, and things like that. So because there is a change in focus, it is actually going to benefit this trine with the Mercury with Jupiter thing that we were talking about. On the 25th, Mercury is also not in retrograde anymore, and therefore is going to have a lot more clarity. Jupiter is still retrograde, but that's fine. It's an outer planet, so it has a longer retrograde cycle, and each and every day is not as impactful when we talk about far off planets. But Mercury is more of a personal planet, so it's even more important for it to be in a healthy state, for our mind to be alert, focused, and active, vital as well. Our communications, our cognitive abilities, and any collaborative efforts you might have, that can actually go ahead 25th onwards. Or if you've already gone ahead, then you are likely to see some positive returns or results out of it, some outcomes coming in. But it also indicates a form of mental clarity or harmony with your belief systems in some way. So any soul searching you're doing throughout this month between the 4th and the 25th, you're likely to see strong progress coming about on the 25th. Another trine that Mercury makes is with Uranus in the same zodiac, and Uranus is retrograde as well. And this occurs on the 30th, and this brings about some clarity on changes that have happened in the past. And when I say clarity, I mean mental clarity more specifically. It can be such as, your strategy is now well developed, or the way you're planning your life or your everyday activities, that is more in harmony and in flow, so that you're feeling flexible, well rested, but at the same time focused whenever you have to focus. So because Uranus is retrograde and it's the planet of revolutions and liberation, it can be about the aha moments we experience in life. And when it goes retrograde, it's not so much about the shocks and surprises anymore, but rather, okay, let the changes sink in. Let's absorb it and see how that fits into our lives. It should not be just something in the external world that comes and goes, right? The essential point of all of these planets and whatever they do relationally to one another is essentially to improve us or to help us better express ourselves in an uninhibited manner. So that's essentially what's happening on the 30th here. Both of these planets are off the mind. Uranus rules the higher mind. Mercury rules the common sense, the logical, rational mind. So we are essentially able to distill the awakenings and epiphanies we might have had in August and July and even a little bit before, and we are able to put that into action on an everyday basis. So something that you might have been feeling or dealing with in the past and it might have felt a little bit too much, you are now able to realize on an everyday basis. Now let's move on to these sun trines. Whenever we talk about Mercury trines, it's about the mental process and what can be done about it. But with the sun, it's a little bit different because it just brings you the clarity, and then it's up to you how you want to use that. The sun wants us to express ourselves whichever house it touches, wherever it goes. It's more about what you focus on, what are you oriented towards. It's like a moth to a flame, right? We are the moths, the sun is the flame, and we're headed towards a specific direction. So when the sun is making a harmonious aspect, it's calling us towards a specific, goal that we would enjoy. Or it's some information, or it can be not necessarily information, but just a realization or a coming together of certain things that have been ongoing or in your life, and you just put kind of pieces together and it just makes more sense, Those types of situations can be demonstrated by the sun trines. So we have the sun trining with Jupiter, who's retrograde in your 7th house. That's on the 8th of the month. Then we also have another trine that the sun makes with Uranus in Taurus, and Uranus is retrograde. That's on the 16th. Both of these trines are about bringing in breakthroughs or resolutions connected with your partnership section. It can even be about what types of people are you drawing in? Are there certain undesirable connections that you don't want to be related to all the time? Or does it mean that some relationships just need to evolve at this particular point in time because you have changed, your circumstances are changing, your aspirations are brought into focus, and you just have that higher level of motivation to just get it done? If there are certain people who block you or they constantly put you down in some way, this would be the time when you just are able to amicably part ways and you're grateful for what happens. When we have outer planets being retrograde, we're more, actually any planet being retrograde, we're actually more more accepting point of view. We don't resist so much, okay? We can listen to our intuition a lot better, and maybe because we feel a little bit more haywire, or like we don't really know where everything is going, so we need that help and we are more willing to listen. But regardless, it's absolutely helping our outcomes over here. So if you're wanting to, let's say, neaten up your social media profile or your LinkedIn or something, and you want to connect with a new group of people, it is likely that you make some friends here, or you have some type of social event going on and you encounter people coming from different backgrounds. It can even be certain foreign cultures that you collaborate with or you connect with, and it just brings you a whole different perspective. It opens you up, and that really excites you. This also is an earth trine, right? So it can show some tangible influences or outcomes beyond this point, such as you get a health tip from a friend, from a friend you just met or you just made. You might have heard of this person in the past, but you never had the chance to meet them. But now that there is the circumstance and it's ideal, you're interacting with them, and that really breaks you out of your shell in some regard. There's another trine that the sun makes, but it is activating a different house. It's with Pluto in the sign of Capricorn, and Pluto is as well retrograde. This is occurring on the 21st. Now, Capricorn falls in your 3rd house. So this is really talking about some mindset shifts that you're creating by yourself of an ongoing circumstance, certain trauma or subconscious belief patterns that have not been helping you in the past. There can be some clarity here. Now, Pluto is your ruler. While it is retrograde, you might feel as though you don't have as much power to battle through things, or you might feel as though the suffering is just really heightened in some way, or certain fears and insecurities just have no way of leaving your life, and that you have to put in so much work and effort in order to see anything that at some times you're just like, you know what, forget about it, I'm just gonna live with it, right? So on the 21st, with the sun in Virgo, which is a very healing sign, it can indicate that your past difficulties inform the guidance and the help that you give to others. Additionally, it means that you know what help to receive from others as well. So you're asking the right questions and you're receiving the useful answers that you can then think about in your personal time with yourself, or discuss in your local sphere, and just get a lot more understanding. It feels a little bit profound for you guys, to me. And especially Capricorn is at a sextile angle to Scorpio, so it is going to help you develop your personal self. So how you appear, what your attitude is, how you see reality, how you see suffering or pain or difficulties that you've encountered in the past as well. There's likely going to be a little bit more optimism, but it is still an Earth trine, so it's a realistic optimism. Also can talk about trust. If trust has been betrayed in the past, you might recognize that either you're propagating that into your external reality, or that you've taken it very personally and it is now that you don't even trust yourself anymore. Such things which can be deeply embedded, that is governed by Pluto. So that's likely going to be resolved or show some type of forward movement to help you out along your healing journey, essentially. All right, now let's talk about the Sun conjunct Mercury. Mercury is retrograde in this conjunction. That's in Virgo in your 11th house again. It's occurring on the 6th. So wherever the Sun goes, clarity goes, and this literally talks about mental clarity. Now, in the retrograde phase, Mercury can be quite foggy, and it can be hit and miss whenever you try certain things, like your aspirations as well. You may or may not be highly, disciplined about that. You think you enjoy it, but then there is also this little piece of the little part of your mind which is like doubting that same goal or aspiration. For example, I would love it if I could do this and this and this. That is ideal, but I don't know if I can practically do it, right? That could be the state of being or the state of mind prior 6th. But on the 6th, or like one day before after, you are likely to get some more clarity of what is possible, what is not possible, and that just gives you, it nudges you towards the right direction so you can plan more efficiently moving forward. All right, now let's talk about the opposition. The Sun right opposite Neptune, which is on the 19th. This is going to target your 5th house and 11th house. Now, Neptune is retrograde in that sign of Pisces, right? So it can talk about some... if there have been some delusional thinking that is disillusioned whenever Neptune goes retrograde, so the reality is out front. On the negative side, let's say, it can mean that inspiration or imagination is a little bit dampened, and we need to look elsewhere in order to trigger this type of mindset. So if you're someone who's creative and tries to, let's say, create poetry or some other form of expression, then, and if you're experiencing a sort of creative block around the 19th, you can look around in your everyday life, everyday routines. What do you do when you're just sitting? Let's say when you're sitting, when you wake up, like how do you move about your life? Perhaps there is a need for more flexibility, maybe exploring different environments like roads and parks and connections that you've not explored before. Trying those things out can again reignite that passion or inspiration that can refuel that 5th house of creativity and self-expression. Additionally, this can mean that you're feeling a little bit more intuitive around this time, but Sun opposite Neptune can feel a little bit foggy still, because Neptune in general, direct or retrograde, is still relatively foggy. It's not so much about at 12 p.m. I'm going to do this, and then at 12:30 I will have some other thing going on. It's not that clear, but the Sun in Virgo is trying to make everything clear. What can be a little bit annoying here is that there is not as much clarity as you would like, because many things are up in the air still, or many things are a little bit more idealistic and not as realistic as Virgo would like. But regardless, this is about finding balance, as it is an opposition. And the best you can, moderate both sides. So not trying to be too creative or idealistic, but at the same time, not trying to be too pedantic or perfectionist with things. That is going to help you out. This can also indicate that you have lots of creative potential, but you may doubt your capability and you're not wanting to publish it without it being absolutely perfect. So just watch out for that. Sometimes it can go in the adverse conditions. It's not always horrible, right? It really depends person to person. So just watch out for any situation where you drive yourself anxious, right? Because the sun is involved. It can be us doing this to ourselves, right? All right. Now let's talk about the Venus squares. Venus squares with Jupiter and Uranus. Venus squaring with Jupiter is on the 17th. At this point, again, the sun is in Virgo, so it is going to be at a beneficial aspect to Jupiter, sign-based, and it is an Earth trine, so there are going to be some realistic expectations or realistic changes and epiphanies, or it can be some re-evaluations of certain belief systems and what types of connections you have or clients you have and what you want, actually. So with Venus squaring in this state is going to be about you figured out your desires, but now you really have to figure out how to implement that thing on a day-to-day basis. So what are the small little things you can do right now, today, using the resources that you have right now that can help you move your dreams along? Now, there is this tendency to assume that what we desire cannot be created in reality because we don't have the help we need, or we don't have the time we need, or any other resources that are required at this point. But like I mentioned, it's important to note, actively try to think, what can I do right now? Even if I don't have all of the ideal circumstances or the ideal people I would need or I would like at this time, what can be done at this time? Because it can be highly motivational for you. And whenever we have squares, especially benefic squares, it can be motivational. Like, come on, get moving. Don't doubt yourself. Don't sit there. Don't dilly-dally, because that's just going to annoy you and frustrate you, and you are not going to be very proud of yourself. So come on, let's get up and let's get moving regardless of what happens. The trouble can occur because of that assumption that I mentioned before, but also because it's a fixed square. There is a lot of inertia when we talk about the fixed signs. You are as well a fixed sign. So it can feel as though if it's not going to be sustainable or long-lived, then I don't want to do this. I don't want temporary solutions today and then tomorrow change it again and then again and again, right? So that can be a little bit of that resistance, but yeah, it's just something to try, I guess. It also depends on use case. For example, if you're wanting to date someone and you know exactly what type of relationship status you want, let's say you don't want to casually date anymore and you just want to get married, enter into a commitment, but then you also know that other people get scared of that, or, it might come on too strong, too fast, so then you try to temper it, and that can be a little bit of a stressful situation. But ultimately, in this circumstance as well, you're trying to do what is best for you and for any relationship that you enter, because entering into any connection with the facade of, oh yeah, it's fine, it's casual, but internally you're thinking, yeah, but I would like to get married right now, then that's not really doing either one of you any favors, right? It's that type of situation that's coming out here, but it absolutely is a force for change, and something that encourages you to keep on going with whatever your goals and desires are, essentially. But Venus is still in shadow phase in this particular square, so she's not going to be in her usual energy. She's still like figuring things out, and she knows what she wants, but she's not as independent feeling yet. Or she might, doubt herself around this time, even if she knows what she wants, right? So those are some things to look out for. Now, the other square that Venus makes is with Uranus, same zodiac, and Uranus is as well retrograde. This occurs on the 29th, and at this time, the zodiac season shifts from Virgo into Libra. So Venus rules Libra, and Libra falls in your 12th house. So there is this higher chance of letting go of whatever fears and insecurities or other external circumstances that just seem to, keep bothering you. There is some type of opportunity here to resolve those things so that you can move forward into a more independent way of being. Okay? It can be, for example, let's say you see how you self-sabotage yourself with your goals or your status that you want to achieve, and therefore you are going to work on those things, and you're not interested in sticking to them anymore. There's less resistance. And what's interesting is that Venus has been squaring with Uranus all throughout July and also in August, a little bit looser in August, but it has still been there in the backdrop. And Venus has not been in a very strong position to deal with Uranus's triggers, the unexpected shocks, surprises, the changes, and all of that. Venus has been like, whoa, that's a bit much. I need my rest at this time. I need a beauty sleep or treatment at this time. I can't be dealing with all these radical changes. And this would be the first time where Uranus is the one who's retrograde and Venus is completely active. She's out of shadow on this particular day, in fact, and she's ready to tackle head on all the changes that have occurred in the past. So let's say you've had unexpected, expenditures that you could not help. It just had to go perhaps towards a partner or towards a partnership, in a business setting. Regardless, you are now in a much better position on the 29th moving forward to take advantage or rectify whatever changes have occurred in the past and put yourself in a more stable position. Now, this square can also talk about radical transformation and radical independence as well. This is the point where you're like, I'm not going to sit anymore. I'm not going to wait for things to fall on my lap. I'm going to go and make things happen. She's fierce in the sign of Leo. She's very independent in that 10th house. And all of this energy is likely going to be put in your career and ambitions sphere. Now let's talk about some other things. We have this sun moving from Virgo season into Libra season, which shifts your focus from that 11th house into 12th house. I mentioned this already, but whenever the zodiac season that precedes our sign occurs, it is a very important time for us to declutter, surrender, look at certain resistances and other patterns that sabotage our lives, unknowingly or knowingly, whatever the case is. If it's not working in your favor, it's not working at all. That is kind of the ideology that comes with that. So all throughout Libra season, you're likely to go through this purging process, finding a better balance in life, prioritizing self-care, rest, and even your friendships and partnerships, whoever is closest to you, whoever understands you and you're able to trust. It is also the autumnal equinox. Moving from this point, there is going to be transformation, surrender, wisdom phase on a collective level, but even for you. Now, because you are as well a zodiac that follows up on this autumnal equinox by being a Scorpio, you're going to deal with more of the spiritual side of things, but also the personal life that you have. You're not so much caring about, what everybody else in the world wants, but rather, what do I need? What do I want? What am I thinking? How do I stop myself? How can I improve my life, my family and home and all of that? It's more of a cozy time now, one by one, as the zodiacs progress beyond this equinox point. Another thing to note is that eclipse season is going to occur in October. So throughout this month, we're getting a little bit of a drum roll. So observe the general trends and patterns that emerge, especially in the Taurus house of partnerships, and the Libra house of your surrendering, spirituality, anything connected with the other world, abstract relationships, especially toxic relationships or certain patterns you might have with relating to the world and reality or even the universe. Finally, let's talk about the moons. We have a new moon in the sign of Virgo, which trines with Uranus in Taurus, who is retrograde, and this affects your 11th and 7th houses again. This is on the 15th, and it coincides with Mercury in Virgo going direct, so it's going to be quite potent and a turning point. There can be some new ideas or projects that come to you. It can be inspired by a friend or a network, but it can also be something you think of while discussing something with a partner or a close friend, and it just brings into focus what your aspiration has been. It can be that, yes, I have been wanting to create this dream since ages now, but I've never known how. But on the 15th, you might have that idea of how you can actually put that into action. Because it's an earth trine and it's an earthy moon, it's going to be what you can do on a more tangible, physical basis. And Virgo rules sustainability as well. So what is sustainable on a longer run? Even if you have to adapt your methods, you still can take some practical actions around this time. Then we have a full moon on the 29th, and this one is in Aries. And it is another zodiac that is ruled by Mars. You are also ruled by Mars, so that's interesting. You're going to feel this. This is in a fire sign, so you're going to probably feel this more beneficially. But it is going to essentially be quite inspiring and motivational, just as I was saying, with Venus squaring with Uranus, which is happening on the same day. It's quite independent. especially because of that Aries full moon, right? You don't want to sit and wait for other things to work out, and there's no complacency over here anymore. Okay, even if the sun is in Libra, you're still instinctually drawn towards what new systems can I do today, what action can I take today. If I want to reach my I don't know, my personal goals, I'm going to have to act right now. I can't wait for a month to pass and then another month to pass, waiting for all the planets to go direct again or whatever, right? So you are taking action right then and there. It can feel a little bit impulsive. It can. All right. So just be watchful for that if you already have that tendency. Because there might be, because again, Libra in the 12th house, there can be a sabotaging instinct too of let me just end this relationship because we had a fight. Okay, I'm really fired up and I want to be independent right now, so forget about this person, or forget about this routine that I just set up for myself after so many months of trying to set up this habit. I'm set back now, so forget it. There can be the tendency to just completely eradicate your previous efforts. Not for everyone, just something to be watchful for. But essentially, it is still going to help you out with motivating you and inspiring you. It's a fiery full moon. It needs a channel. Okay, it's a cardinal full moon as well. Aries is a cardinal sign, which means it takes action and takes initiative. So it needs to be channeled in order to be utilized in a fruitful manner. But yeah, that sounds pretty nice to me. And it's also going to be at a trine aspect with the Venus activities that's going on in Leo. So it's going to benefit you in a career prospect. Perhaps you're getting a job, or you're looking for a job at this time. You're like, I'm not going to sit and wait for things to occur for me. I'm just going to grab the bull by its horns and I'm just going to go for it. Okay. So that's what I have for you. Thank you for being here. I really hope you enjoyed and that the messages help you out throughout the month. Stay tuned for the tarot reading as well. I will be uploading them soon. Make sure you subscribe and hit the bell so you're notified whenever that's up. And if you enjoyed the reading, please do like and comment your thoughts if you have any. It will be really lovely to hear back from you, and it really helps the channel grow as well. I will see you some other time. Until then, take care. Bye.